We're here with Justin Mello from the Draft Network. You brought up something in a conversation we had earlier. I think you just kind of hit on it, right? And I think this is an interesting perspective to get because you are somebody who is very closely tied to, watching the Titans and what their story has been. There's been a lot of argument in Cleveland internally, right, within the fan base on whether to get rid of Kevin. Because on one hand, the offense hasn't been great for 2 years. People are wondering if this is a Kevin thing. And like the stuff that brought you to the table with Kevin in 2023, the efficiency, the creativity out the offensive side of the ball, you just haven't seen it in a couple of years. And you're wondering like if he's still that guy there. Now, the counter argument that I've heard from some folks who really don't want to let Kevin go is this could be a situation that you could end up regretting because we all know that he can be a competent coach. We all seen that, hey, if you give him enough, you can win games with him. And this could end up being or feeling like a Mike Vrabel situation where it's like, oh, you let Mike Vrabel go, he goes somewhere else, and you remember, oh, if Mike Vrabel has good stuff, he could do good things as a coach. From you having that perspective, right, of living through, it got bad there with Brian Callahan out here, like that whole thing. How do you view that Brown situation there, like having that firsthand experience, watching the Titans let go of somebody who at the time, there was probably more of an argument than it feels like there is now to get rid of him?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm of the opinion, and that's a very good comparison. I'm of the opinion that Kevin Stefanski didn't forget how to coach overnight. He didn't forget how to coach offensive side of the ball overnight. The problem is the ingredients, right? Like, remember the old Bill Parcells quote, like, if you want me to make dinner, I'd like to go buy some of the groceries, okay? And I don't know that Kevin's quite had that opportunity. I mean, you're a little closer to the situation than I am, Quincy, but I get the impression that Deshaun Watson wasn't a Kevin Stefanski decision, right? And that blows up in their faces. And now I don't know. It didn't strike me that, SHEDEUR was a Kevin Stefanski decision. That maybe even Dylan Gabriel was a Kevin Stefanski. I would love to see Kevin Stefanski get an opportunity, maybe in this draft, to have some input on a quarterback. Now, unless SHEDEUR lights it up these last 5 games and they're confident in moving forward with him, the grass could always be greener, right? And that's not the case. Like they've gone way worse, the Titans have, since firing Mike Vrabel. And I think the Browns would probably get worse too if they were to fire Kevin Stefanski. I don't know a coach in the NFL right now. This is what it boils down to. Fans lose sight of this when their team is losing. The Titans were losing under Mike Vrabel. At the end, they were losing a lot. People forget that, but guess what? They've lost more because Mike Vrabel was a good coach that was keeping the bottom from falling out.
Yeah.
I think Kevin Stefanski right now is probably keeping the bottom from falling out. And if they go get him a quarterback, I think things could improve really quickly. If you are going to fire a head coach, this is a motto you could live by. If the head coach I'm going to fire is probably going to get hired somewhere else within 2 minutes, I probably shouldn't fire that head coach.
That's a good model to go by. I think too, when it comes to like Kevin being able to pick the groceries, right? Because I've been conflicted with this too, because like I want to see the offense evolve, and I think Kevin has made some attempts there, but those attempts haven't looked great. But it might be because he doesn't have the pieces to evolve too. But when it comes to him getting the groceries, it's like twofold here, right? Because he's picked some of the guys on the team. He's definitely had like the opportunity to have a hand in it. Andrew Berry's a super collaborative GM. The thing is like he hasn't been picking from the top of his list, right? And we all know, right? If you follow or you listen to any GM talk, you hear their top 3. And it could be a wild list of 3 names there. It's like, yeah, I wanted to go Pat Mahomes. I wanted to go, who else was in that 2017 draft that was like really, really good? Pat Mahomes, And
Was Deshaun
then,
Watson in that draft?
yeah, Deshaun
Deshaun
Watson
was in that draft.
was in that class. He was good for a time. And then, your third guy might be like, Solomon Thomas, right? And it's like, you could look like a genius if you get to pick the top two guys in your packet. But then you get to that third guy, or maybe like your packet looks terrible, but like the third guy in it that you got was Amon-Ra St. Brown, and you look like a genius. So many of those things happen with drafts, right? Where it's like you got a packet of players, you pick one, you hit on the one you pick, but the other two players you might not have been fortunate with. And when you're not picking at the top, right? Like if you look at the Browns' resources since 2020, when Andrew Berry, Kevin got here, the problem was the defense. The defense stunk. And they used, I think, one first-round pick on offense since 2020, and that was, I think, Jedrick Wills. And they used one second-round pick on offense, and I think that's Quincy Junkins, right? Like, other than that, every other asset that's been used for the offense has been either free agency or, Deshaun Watson. There's questions about, like, if Kevin was the guy who wanted him. It does not make sense for Kevin to be the guy who was pounding the table for Deshaun, because it's not like Deshaun's style was a seamless fit with what Kevin wants to do. It seems like a decision to make that was made by somebody who had a lot of faith in Kevin to figure it out. But it doesn't seem like if you're Kevin, you're sitting here and you look at the guys he liked Dillon Gabriel. There's not a lot of overlap with how Dillon Gabriel plays the game of football and how Deshaun plays, or, you can't see Dillon Gabriel have success the same way that Deshaun, or in the same system. Now, that's a huge hit to where the Browns might be leaning towards in the draft, right? Okay, they like Dillon Gabriel. Who else has had success in the system that Dillon Gabriel was able to run? I think the answer is pretty clear on where they could be leaning if that guy does come out. But it is something to think about, right? And I think that like, as much as I'm frustrated with the offense and I could lean sometimes like, hey, you got to fire Kevin, I do always have to remind myself to appreciate, like, hey, man, this is not firing Mike Pettin, dog. Like, this is not firing somebody who's never had success and being like, oh yeah, you're done with it. It's a much more, it's a conversation that you hope is made not emotionally by this organization, and that internally they have a conversation about what went wrong on offense, who's actually to blame, and if there is stuff there that's legitimately, hey, Kevin just hasn't been the guy over the last couple of years, then you make a decision, and hopefully you make a good decision to replace him. But it can't just be, I'm mad that we haven't scored, right? It has to be process related. But let's move on here, try to talk about the Titans, because that's who the Browns are playing. We're going to continue this conversation with Justin Mello of the Draft Network. But real quick, got to thank my sponsor, Sleeper. Real quick, just want to let you guys know Sleeper has a new offer here. They're offering a free $20 entry, no deposit required. And also, if you're a first-time user, you also will receive a 100% match on up to $100 when you use the promo code WORSTTAKE. Again, $20 free, no deposit required. Plus, first-time users also receive a 100% deposit match up to $100. Join Sleeper. Tennessee Titans are at an interesting spot here because a lot of turmoil at the beginning of the season. I always say there's a handful of things that can get a coach fired in the middle of the season, right? There is huge disappointment. You're a Super Bowl contender. You start the season 1-5. You get fired midseason. It's real easy to get fired midseason in that situation. The other scenario is you draft somebody number 1 overall, and then you start to feel like the guy coaching is not helping that guy who's at number 1 overall. It's real easy to get fired. I think that's the most common. Like, first round pick quarterback not being helped by head coach is the easiest way for a coach to get fired midseason. I think we've seen it with Baker Mayfield, Jackson Dart, and now also we saw it with earlier this season, Cam Ward. How has that development been with Cam Ward, and how do you feel about where Cam Ward is in this offensive line age to handle the challenge that is Myles Garrett on an all-time run?
Well, I think Cam Ward's been better than advertised. You know, if you're
Mhm.
if you're just looking at the box score, you're not going to come away feeling like that. Not a lot of touchdown passes. He's had some turnovers, but I'll tell you this: the Titans aren't writing the handbook on how to support a rookie quarterback. I mean, he started the year with the same head coach and play caller, right? Like the head coach was the offensive play caller, and now he's had three different people in those roles in total because they stripped the head coach of play calling after week 3, and then
Mm.
they fired that head coach after week 6. And by the way, the current play caller is not the same as the current head coach anymore, right? Like they went from Brian Callahan, they give the quarterback coach play calling after week 3, Bo Hardigree. Then they fire Brian Callahan and they make Mike McCoy the interim head coach. So in short, Cam Ward has had three different people in his ear from a head coaching and play calling perspective this season. That's not ideal. And then when
Yeah.
you look at a supporting cast, he perspective, he's throwing the ball to a bunch of fourth round rookies. He's got two fourth round receivers and a fourth round tight end. They lose their number one receiver, Calvin Ridley, to a season ending injury. It's just been a ton of turmoil for the organization. Half measures have been a problem. Hindsight is 2020. What they should have done was fired Brian Callahan in the offseason and hired a head coach they could align Cam Ward with from the jump. They didn't
Mhm.
do that. And now they're trying to retrace their steps, and they're going to be doing that this coming offseason, right? Now they've got to hire a head coach that wants to come here and believes in Cam Ward and wants to coach Cam Ward and thinks they could develop him. I think it's going to be an enticing job. I don't think coaches around the league are looking and saying we don't want to come coach Cam Ward. I think there's
Mhm.
going to be a lot of people that say, hey, that's an interesting job because we like the rookie quarterback that's in place. From an offensive line perspective, it just hasn't met expectations. And I think Myles Garrett's going to be licking his chops. He's going to be real excited about the opportunity, Quincy, to go up against an old friend. Because the left tackle there in Tennessee, his former Pittsburgh Steelers left tackle, Dan Moore, who Myles Garrett
Oh.
had a lot of success with throughout the early portion of his career. You know, the Titans' offensive line, it's not terrible. They've given up the most sacks in the NFL. It looks worse than it is because Cam Ward's a rookie guy who's occasionally holding on to the ball. They're very inconsistent, the offensive line. If I had to rank them out of 32, they're probably like the 22nd best off, the 23rd best offensive line in the NFL.
Mhm.
Titans had higher expectations for this group coming in. They spent a lot of money and draft capital on this O line. They thought they were going to be like the 16th best line because they were like 32nd. They were terrible last year. So it's improved a little bit, but it hasn't quite improved to the point that they wanted it to. And if I was in that offensive room this week, I don't feel good about my chances of slowing down Myles Garrett. They're going to try to do what everyone else does. They're going to double team him. They're going to triple team him. They're going to chip him. They're going to ask a running back in the backfield to pick it. Like they're going to try to get the ball out quick, design the quick passing game. Hasn't necessarily been Cam Ward's strength this year. He loves to hold on to the ball and try to create
Mm.
occasionally. So, in short, like this is a tremendous challenge for them. One that I don't see them figuring out a way to navigate.
I wonder if this is a week where Dan Moore gets to his rookie quarterback and he says, "Hey, man, that ball needs to be out on the third step. Like, if you want to get out this game upright, the ball needs to be up on the like. I think this could be a real, there's educational experiences in the NFL, right? You never know how real it is until you get out there. And I think some people are learning that with SHEDEUR, right? Where I think some folks might have underestimated the difference between Big 12 football and the NFL, which is just, hey, look, it's different. It's way different. I brought this up. I was like, well, I think Tyler Batty for BYU was like the best edge in the Big 12 last year. And he's like a linebacker now for the Vikings on the practice squad doing scout team. Like that's just the difference. It's a whole different league. And with Cam Ward, I'm sure he has had his challenges that he has seen this year. Myles Garrett is a unique challenge, and Dan Moore is uniquely experienced with what kind of challenge that is. And I bet there's going to be a discussion of, hey, I understand that you want to create for your guys and you don't mind taking the hit. But if you, who's your backup now for Cam Ward?
No, it's Brandon Allen. It's like a
Yeah,
veteran, 9, 10 year journeyman that they
yeah.
only brought in because he knows the offense because he had
Mm.
previously played for Brian Callahan. So
Oh,
they
so
brought him in to try to help teach Cam Ward the offense. The issue, Quincy, one of the big issues is like in a perfect world, and I'm being honest about the situation, you want that ball to come out on that third step.
mm,
But when you're dealing with a receiving core that
oof,
is one of the worst in the NFL, it's not like they're creating quick, easy separation, right? Like it's not
yeah.
like he's missing a bunch of open guys. He's throwing the ball to 3 4th round picks and a tight end, essentially, right? Like they're not creating easy separation. The offense is a mess because Brian Callahan's system was not working here. They don't have an identity. They're not running the football with any sort of consistent success. So it's not like they could lean on establishing a run game. The offense is a full-blown disaster, in all honesty. They don't know, like they want to be an 11 personnel team because that's what Brian Callahan wanted them to be, but they're really bad at 11 personnel. Like there's no identity. Your second head coach, your second play caller, you have got one of the worst supporting casts in the league from a wide receiver perspective. It's the mess that you get when you're a rookie quarterback on a
Mm.
1-11 football team.
And it brings up a point too. It's like I don't think it needs to be perfect for you to develop a rookie. But you do need to identify what this guy needs to work on and can you put him in a position to give him positive reinforcement if he works on that, right? Like, so if you're Cam Ward, you're like, hey, he needs to play on time. He needs to be on schedule a little bit more. And it's like, you're probably not doing yourself a service when he's constantly not being rewarded for being on time,
Right,
being on
exactly.
schedule, right? Like, you're not going to push that development in the right direction. And that's something to think about, right? Like, I don't think it has to be perfect. You don't need a perfect line or something like that. But if you do, my big concern with SHEDEUR coming in was like, hey, the line's not good and he has pocket response issues, right? Like, it doesn't feel like you're putting him in a position to get better at the thing that he's struggling with, which is that. And you're going to reinforce some bad habits because what's he going to have to do to escape some of these pockets? He's going to have to get used to bailing early. You're reinforcing some bad behaviors. And it's why some quarterbacks can develop from certain situations that aren't great, but the situation was fine for their development. Where it's like, other situations, it's like, it's kind of tough. Like even with Josh Allen, right? It took them getting some real separators for him to understand, like, oh, okay, I can be rewarded for playing early. I can be rewarded for getting ahead of the sticks. Like maybe my game being a little bit more boring is actually good.
And
And I think that's something that like to keep in mind because I think the conversation gets to either everything's perfect for the quarterback and you can perfectly develop him, or it's not. But it's a lot messier than that. It can work if it's messy, but it's a lot messier than that.
I think what's been encouraging for Cam,
Mhm.
or for the Titans, I should say, is you've seen the flashes of him overcoming the surroundings. Like he's made some really gorgeous throws on tape. He's made some highlight reel off script throws that there was his first career touchdown pass I think no one will ever forget where he rolls all the way to his right, throws across his body and finds a rookie receiver in the end zone. He had one against the Seahawks that went viral 2 weeks ago where he's all the way out, he's like mid-air out of bounds and he finds his old college teammate Xavier Restrepo for a first down. There was one against Seahawks 2 weeks ago. He was in the grasp of a sack and
Mm.
got rid of the ball as he was going down and converted it 2nd and 9, and they got a first down out of that. So I think what's encouraging for the Titans is he has shown the signs of overcoming, and he's shown them exactly why they took him at number 1 overall. I think going forward, you're almost hoping for a Caleb Williams like situation. Hey, we didn't have a good situation for Caleb in year 1. Probably should have fired Matt Eberflus a little earlier. You come back, you get the right head coach, you knock that hire out of the park, and you're seeing that player thrive in year 2. I think the Titans have a lot of hope that is going to be the path that Cam Ward follows because you said it like when I think of quarterbacks and when probably end on this discussion here. It's like there are guys that can't overcome bad situations that they're put in. And then maybe they leave and they get better. And hindsight is, and you look back and say, well, it was the situation. That's what we're saying now with Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, even Geno
Mm-hmm.
Smith to an extent before this year, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you saw what Geno Smith did in Seattle, Sam Darnold, and both Minnesota and Seattle now, both those guys, ironically enough, when they get away from the Jets, or Baker Mayfield getting away from maybe a situation in Cleveland that wasn't prudent to his development. Like all those guys leave and get better, right? But there are also quarterbacks, I think, that are a level above those that even if you tried your hardest to ruin them, they're unflappable. And I think that's what separates. Like the Cincinnati Bengals could have ruined Joe Burrow in year one when they go 3-13 and he has a torn ACL. Like not an ideal situation for Joe Burrow in year one.
Yeah.
But he shakes that off,
Andrew
comes
Luck
back
going
like
to like the conference championship in his first year on a
right.
team that won one game the year prior.
Like the truly elite quarterbacks, I think, are the ones that are maybe unflappable. And I think the best thing I could say about Cam Ward, believe it or not, even though the Titans are 1-11, watch the tape. There
Mm.
have been so many instances on tape this year where you are like, this guy's unflappable. This guy's rise. Like 2 weeks ago, they almost upset the Seattle Seahawks. They have no business competing with the Seattle Seahawks, but they
Mm-hmm.
lose by 6. The week before that, he puts together a 95-yard touchdown drive in the final 2 minutes to go tie the Houston Texans. They've got no business doing that. So there have been instances where you're like, this guy's got it. This guy is the real deal. Can they get the head coaching hire right this coming offseason? Can they find they're going to have a lot of draft capital, a lot of money in free agency? Can they put a couple pieces around him so he could have that big time year 2 elevation?
Definitely be something to watch going forward. Excited to see Cam Ward in this game and see SHEDEUR. Hopefully, both these guys don't decide to try to outdo each other in some kind of crazy way, right? And turn the ball over a million times. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting to watch. Thank you, Justin, for being on. And if people want to hear more from you, Justin, where can they find you?
Pleasure was all mine. I've actually got my own Titans-based podcast that's got a really good Browns preview coming out later today with lifelong Browns fan Mark Sessler, of formerly of Around the NFL and currently of Heed the Call. So people can check that out. Find it on my Twitter at JustinM_NFL. Head over to draftnetwork.com. The Browns are loaded with draft capital. We've got you covered for all your Browns NFL draft needs. We've got the mock draft machine. You can run your own mock draft scenarios for the Browns. We've got our own mock drafts conducted by one of our experts, sometimes me, myself, dropping once a week. We've got a player, big boards. We've got like 300 scouting reports for the upcoming draft. On those quarterbacks, Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore, some of the ones that might intrigue the Browns this coming offseason. Check all that out at thedraftnetwork.com. Follow me over there on X at JustinM_NFL. Best of luck to the Browns the rest of the way. At least we get a fun storyline out of this game. It would be a boring one otherwise, but at least we get the Cam Ward versus SHEDEUR Sanders story that everyone is following. And who knows? These two teams might swing a draft day trade
I was about to
come
say,
April.
we're probably going to be back in April. Like, I talked about it. I'm like, if the Browns stay in the top 5 and the Titans are at the top of that draft, that's a very easy call for both teams to make because they were making calls last year because the Browns were trying to get Cam Ward or trying to get the Titans to trade that pick to him. So they're familiar with each other. Did y'all no, the GM got fired before, right? After Vrabel, and then you fired him, and then they brought in. So it's been this weird two-step thing here. But yeah, they made those calls last year. So they're probably going to make that call again. And I think, if the Browns could be within range for the Titans to get, the edge defender that they want, or maybe a supporting piece for Cam Ward, I think they're going to be interested in like, okay, yeah, if we can get an extra, pick here and the Browns might be willing to deal like a second or something to do it. Be interested to see what they swing, because I don't think Andrew Berry's going to pay the same price that James Gladstone paid for Andrew Berry. Like I don't think he's going to do that, but I think he's going to try to make a call there, because the reality is, look, it's just rare that you're in a draft in the top 5 and you got a quarterback that you want to pick and think justifies the pick. And in those situations, like, I don't care what's on your roster, dog. You can't pass that up. I mean, we've seen teams with better quarterbacks decide, hey, we got to take the guy, right? Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning still has some years left, but they said, hey, we got to go get this guy here, right? So, the Browns are probably going to be in a position to call up the Titans again and see what's up. And we'll definitely check back in there. We'll probably check in during the draft season to kind of mock out that kind of what that trade would look at and what that conversation would look like. But thank you, Justin, for coming on, talking Titans, giving us the perspective of the Brown season and the Titan season. That's going to be interesting to see what happens on Sunday. But thank you, man. Have a great day. Have an even better night, y'all. Peace.